Hey everybody, Jeremy Weiss here with Weiss Tech Hockey, and in this video we're going to talk a little bit about initiating the cycle. So in our coaches training course, and I'll put a link to this in the description of this video, but in the coaches training course we talk a little bit about cycling and how to actually cycle. And in that video I mentioned that the player receiving the cycle is the one who should really call for the puck and initiate that cycle, or at least communicate that the cycle is an available option. So I had a question come in from one of our readers, watchers, whatever you want to call it, one of our Weiss Tech coaches, and he's working with a Bantam house team. Now, anytime you're talking house, that usually means you've got a fairly wide range of abilities and skill levels, experience levels from top to bottom. So he said some of the players on his team get the concept, some of them don't, but what happens often is the puck carrier cycles the puck back to a player who's not expecting it. So what I wanted to do in this video is just kind of go through the different possible options and different, I guess, the ways that I recommend how the cycle should be initiated. So let me just start by saying, before you get into cycling, it's really important that your players understand timing and support concepts. Both of those concepts, they're different, but they go hand in hand. And we do have, I'm pretty sure I have some videos on timing and support as well. So I'll put links, whatever I talk about in this, I'll make sure to put links in the description of this video so you can check them out. But anyways, timing and support are extremely important, especially in the offensive attack situations. So basically, we want to make sure our players are arriving on time in the proper receiving zone or the proper areas. They want to arrive with the proper speed too. So you don't want your players arriving in the receiving zone, but they got there too fast. Now they're slowing down. So that's just for an example. But what we want players in the right places at the right time. And then support means almost always we want to have, especially in the offensive attack situations, we want to have a front side passing option and a backside passing option. And we want to be in close enough proximity to the puck carrier that if he mishandles the puck or gets the puck knocked off his stick or whatever, that the next player will be able to pick that up. So if you watch the best teams, especially like NHL teams, but watch, and this is really usually apparent in the neutral zone, the best teams, when the puck gets poke checked off their stick or whatever, most of the time the puck, even just from being in the right position, the puck will magically land on one of their teammates' sticks. And you sit there and you wonder, how come they always get the bounces? And it's not a matter of getting the bounce. Not always. Sometimes it is. But usually it's a matter of they were in the proper position for a support position where they could either be a passing option or be ready if the puck gets chipped off the other player's stick. So that's kind of my little intro with this. Let's jump ahead and go straight to the rink, and we'll talk exactly how to initiate this cycle. And since the question came from a house league coach, I'm going to kind of cater my response to that level of play. But the same concepts, it always still applies at every level. It's just if you've got a more beginner age group or more beginner level of play, then you need to tailor what you're teaching them and how you're teaching them to make it make sense for them. So let's just say this. So we've got our setup. We've got most times when we talk about the attack, we always want to attack in a triangle formation. That gives us the front side and back side support that we were talking about. So assuming, let's say we got into the zone, maybe we got a scoring chance or whatever, and then the puck came loose into the corner. We still want, even after the initial attack, we still want to maintain a triangle setup. That way we've always got variable passing options that we can go to. So let's just say the puck, maybe we got a shot on net, the puck dumped into the corner, and RF1 went to go get it, okay? From here, depending on where the other team's pressure is, you've got two options. You can either begin to bring it down behind the net, and that will initiate the cycle going this direction. And I'm going to draw some arrows just to try to keep this as clear as possible. This direction, okay? And I'll explain to you why we talk about it in those terms. But or the other possible option is, and like I said, he's going to have to read the pressure. The other possible option, and this is a more common option, is to start the cycle by skating this direction. Okay. Usually when there's like a cycle that initiates off a battle in the corner or whatever, usually it's going to start this direction. And let's talk about that right now. So let's skip this part. Just know that it can go either way, but here's why it usually goes up this direction, because you're going to have a variation of options, a variety of options, I should say. Okay, so the very first thing we do is when we get that puck, we start walking up the boards with it. The reason why is because we need to give ourselves the option of attacking the seam. The seam, if you're unfamiliar with my terminology, different coaches call it different things. But the seam, in my terminology, is this area kind of right across the top of the circles. And again, I have videos that go into this in a little bit more depth as well. But this is a vulnerable spot in terms of the other team's D-zone coverage, because really, most teams will have their wingers covering the point man up top, their D cover the corners, and this is kind of a gap in coverage. The good teams, if they do it well, I always have my teams have the centerman cover the seam. And so we won't get into that in this video, but oftentimes, just know oftentimes it's overlooked, especially if you're talking house hockey. That's definitely going to be, you'll be able to exploit the seam all day long. So as this player starts rounding up, basically what we do is we see how this goes. Like I said, the cycle will go either direction. So as the other two players read that he's coming up the boards, then this player, he doesn't want to be in the puck carrier's way. So he's going to start opening up as a possible passing option this direction. Okay. The F2, as he sees F3 is coming over into his kind of area, he's going to drop down as a backside support man. Okay, so in this case, the F3 is a front side. He's a front side passing option for F1. F2 is the backside passing option. He's the backside support man. Now, if F1 gets hit or fumbles the puck in the corner, falls down, sometimes that stuff happens, then F2 is in good position to sweep in, pick up the puck, and then he can initiate, a pass out front or a wraparound, or maybe move the puck back to the point, whatever's open. Okay, but just know we always want to have that front side, backside support option. Now, ideally, F1 is bringing the puck up the boards, and let me just get my proper arrows and lines here. Okay, so as he's coming up the boards, this is what we do, and I talk about this in a number of my videos, but we want to systematically make the other team have to make decisions. Okay, so as he's coming up the boards, the other team's defenseman has to decide, well, do I want to go with this guy, or is he not a threat? Do I want to peel back? And whatever he decides to do, that's when we make sure that decision was the wrong one. Okay, so everything we do, basically we're baiting the other team into making a decision, and then we have multiple options depending on what decision they end up making. So hopefully that makes sense. So basically what we want to do here is pull this guy up the boards. Now, if the defenseman stays with him, okay, so let me draw the other team's defenseman here. Okay, I'm just going to make the other team in blue. So let's say we have another team's defenseman that sticks with this guy, right? Basically cutting off. In fact, let's do this. Sorry, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Let's say this defenseman doesn't stay with him. Okay, if he doesn't stay with him, and I'm going to move these arrows out of the way, and instead of having the arrows there, I'm just going to move the players. Okay, so F2 has come in for support position. F3 has peeled open in the high slot, kind of on that far post. I call that the high post. And then let's say this defenseman was in the corner, but as he saw that player, he lost the battle, so he retreated back to the front of the net. So this player is open. Okay, your first option, the first thing you should be looking for is, do I have a lane to the net, or do I have a lane to the seam? Remember, we want to attack that seam. And if that seam is open, then I say that should be your first option. Attack that seam, attack it with speed. Okay, and I'll show you, there's a really simple, straightforward drill called the snake drill. And it's a very simple drill, but it utilizes some pretty important concepts. So attack that seam, open up into a mohawk, and I'll again link to the video for the mohawk, but open up into a mohawk, let a shot go. That's a prime scoring position right there. Walk right through the middle. If they give it to you, walk right through, let that shot go. If you're on your forehand, just shoot with your feet moving, right? So that would be a lefty in this case. So that should be your first option. So this is what you're going through in your head. All your players, as you get into this situation, is what they're looking at. Now let's say that this player, instead of retreating back to the front of the net, he sticks with this guy. Okay, so now, because of the positioning of the other team, there's not really a lane to cut through that seam. Well, now is where the cycle can be very useful. But like I said, everybody on the ice needs to be on the same page as far as, like, what are my options, what am I looking for? So as F1's walking up, F2 is also paying attention to, what's the other team's defender doing? Is he retreating back, or is he following this guy? If F2 sees that the defenseman has followed him, then he needs to be in position and communicating with F1 that he's open now for a cycle. Okay, so that's what I mean by the receiver calls the cycle. Okay, he calls for the puck. It's as if he's calling for a pass. But this particular coach said, what does he call? Does he just yell cycle? Does he yell, do you want a code word? And for me, I don't care. That could be up to the coach. If you would rather have it be a code word, that's fine. Typically, in this case, I haven't really thought it was that necessary. I usually just call cycle, or just call for a puck. And I know that the player I'm playing with, if you have confidence in each other, when you get to that level, I know that this guy, if I'm calling for the puck and I'm behind him, then the type of pass he needs to make is a cycle. So you can call for the puck, you can call for the pass, you can call cycle. But basically what we want to have, and this is important to practice, is a bank pass off the boards. I'm going to try to make it, I've got a little bit too much arrows and stuff going here. But you want to bank it off the boards towards the boards, right? So don't cycle, never cycle back to the middle, because that's where the pressure is. You try to cycle back to the middle, this guy's going to get you. Okay, so cycle back towards the boards like a reverse pass. And then here's the important part. It's all important, but this is extremely important. As that cycle happens, now F1 needs to swoop through and become a possible passing option for that return pass. The give and go out of the corner, the give and go out of the corner is one of the most threatening plays. And the teams that get good at it really, you can really dominate the other team, because think about what you just did there. You baited this man in, got him to chase you, cycle it back, and then beat him back to the front of the net. It's basically you pull the man out of position and then beat him. Okay, so once that cycle comes back, and again, let's just get rid of some of these arrows. So now we've got F1 over here. Let's get rid of this one. Get rid of this one. Okay, and the puck has come right here, and now F2 is coming. He's picking up the cycle, right? He's going to be looking for that return pass back out to F1. Okay, so that can be a really, really good option. In fact, most of the times, cycling doesn't have to happen like over and over and over. You very rarely see more than 2 cycles in a row. When cycling first started getting more popular, then yeah, you did see, a few times. I remember seeing clips of, I think it was the 88 Olympics, and the Canadian team was using cycling quite a bit. And I think there were a few times where they went, 2 or 3 cycles in a row. But now, with teams being more keen on it, most of the time it's 1 or 2 cycles, and then you should be attacking the net at that point. Okay, so that's your first option. Cycle back, quick give and go. Now, I should mention, as F3 sees that F1 has driven through the seam, we don't want to have 2 guys like this. So that basically renders F3 as an ineligible passing option. So as he sees F1 coming through to the front, he needs to be dropping down to the back door. So now we still maintain that triangle, right? And now F1 has the option to either shoot or possibly pass F3. As that pass comes up to the front, I love to see F2 peeling up to the strong post, so that we're crashing that net as the shot comes in. Okay, now let's just say that maybe for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe this guy stayed with F1, or maybe the cycle wasn't the perfect pass, so there wasn't he couldn't get control of it fast enough to give that puck to F1. Okay, so let's just say that. Now we have the option, so we're kind of back to square one now. So now F2 can begin walking the puck up the boards. And this is where you start seeing multiple cycles coming into play, right? So F2 does the same thing, starts walking the puck up the boards, and in case you haven't guessed, now F3 is providing that backside support for F2, and then F1 fills the spot, either on the high post, or sometimes, like I said, sometimes it makes more sense to be down low. Just depends on where the coverage is. Okay, but basically we want to have him on the back door, him or her on the back door. And then from there, it's the same set of reads every single time. Did this player come out, or is he back? But basically, after the first 1 cycle, maybe 2 cycles, now you've probably hung this guy out somewhere. If that passing option wasn't there, maybe he's out here. So now maybe there is an option to cut through, or maybe the cycle is the best option again. You just have to read what their coverage did in reaction to you. But that's kind of the long answer to a short question. How do you initiate the cycle? Who calls for the puck? But that's it. So basically, you're looking off a series of cues, a series of reads, and basically you're baiting the other team into making a decision, and then whatever decision you make, you have at least 2 options from there, based on what their decision was, and you have your reactions already set up. So it's a series of read and reacts. but they're really preset reactions to whatever the read ends up being. If that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. So anyways, that's the answer. That's how you initiate a cycle. But cycling is one of my favorite tactics in offensive play. And the older age groups psychologically can definitely understand these concepts. Younger age groups too, but it's going to take a little bit more babysitting, a little bit more time to really make sure they understand it and get them to be able to do it. The biggest thing I think, especially if you're working with a house team, that you're going to run into is the physical skills. So, getting that pass, making sure it bounces off the boards enough that the next player can pick it up, being able to convert it from a cycle to a give and go out of the corner. And those passes are going to have to be accurate for this to be effective at the house level. If you're talking like AA or AAA hockey or whatever, then yeah, those basic skills should already be developed. And you should be able to just implement the tactic and make sure your players understand it, make sure they understand the reads especially, and then go from there. So that's it. That's initiating the cycle. For more videos like this, make sure you visit us at weisstechhockey.com. And we have tons of cool stuff, drills, skills, different ways you can work on your systems with your team. And we have like I said, the coaches training course, which has been a phenomenal tool for a lot of coaches. So check it out. And that's it for this video. We'll talk soon.